What is going on, everybody? Today we are going to review the ASICS Magic Speed 4. So the ASICS Magic Speed 4 is ASICS Super Trainer, which they say is designed to help support your racing goals, aka it's just a plated trainer that you can use in marathon training as well as possibly race day and speed work. Now that we got the intended use out of the way and how I'll be kind of evaluating the shoe, let's get right into it. So, starting out with the outsole, we have a full-length ASICS grip rubber outsole, and I would say that the traction on this outsole took a little bit of time to break in. It felt a little bit slick out of the box. I was running in these shoes in dry weather conditions on the road, which I believe is its intended use, and I would say that to the touch it felt a little bit slick, as well as I did feel like I needed to be a little bit careful while I was breaking in the outsole. However, once I put about 10 miles into the shoe, the outsole started to, I guess, break away that slippery layer of ASICS grip, and it really started to bite the asphalt really well. So I would say that the grip started to improve the more that I wore the shoe. With that being said, I do think that there were a couple of times where I was running through puddles and I did feel a little bit insecure in the shoe. So if you run a lot in rainy day or wet weather conditions, that's something to keep in mind. I don't believe that this is going to be the best outsole for you. As well as if you run in a lot of gravel areas as well as maybe dirt paths, I would say that this grip is definitely not going to be the best suited for those types of terrain. That's just my personal experience. I haven't really ran in the shoe too much in those conditions. As I said, I mostly ran in sunny conditions on the road in California. If you are running on the road in sunny conditions, you should be totally fine. The ASICS grip rubber really breaks in nicely and you're going to be sticking to the ground pretty well. Now, as for durability on the outsole, I have about 25 miles on my pair currently, and the grip on the bottom looks completely fine. It looks almost brand new in my opinion. So I would say that the durability is holding up very well just from an initial 25-mile test. Now, moving on to the cushioning of the Magic Speed 4. And I also do want to put it out there that this is the first Magic Speed that I've ran in. I know that there's been 3 iterations beforehand, but I haven't ran in those. So I'm going to be speaking on only my experience in the Magic Speed 4. If you were looking for a comparison to last year's model, the Magic Speed 3, then unfortunately I would not be able to give you that perspective between the two. Moving on to the cushioning, we have a FF Turbo puck of foam that's encased in an FF Blast Plus midsole paired with a full-length carbon plate. I know that was a lot of words, so take time, digest that. And as for stack height, we have an 8mm heel to toe drop with 43.5mm in the heel, dropping to 35.5mm in the forefoot. So this is a tall stack height shoe, but from running in the shoe a lot, I would say that it doesn't feel like a super high stack shoe. So don't let that high number or illegal stack height scare you at any point. I didn't feel like I was super high off the ground at any point. Maybe I've just gotten used to running in a lot of these high stack shoes, but I would say that the 43.5mm in the heel did not feel abnormally high if you're typically running in today's daily trainers. Now, how did the cushioning feel? I did a wide variety of tests in this shoe. I ran slow, I ran fast, I tried to run long, I also ran short. And in my opinion, I think that this shoe, as the name suggests, does best when you are picking up the pace, as well as for me, I felt like the sweet spot for this shoe was around 6.2 miles or a 10-kilometer run. I think that that's probably the farthest I want to take this shoe out on. Now, it could be due to a variety of factors on my end, where I am a heavier runner at 200 pounds, and I do feel that the cushioning just felt a little bit stiff and it didn't feel as forgiving as some of the other plated super trainers on the market. And for distances past the 10-kilometer mark, I would prefer to give up a little bit of that rigidness or stiffness for a little bit more compression of the foam, as well as maybe a touch more bounce. Now, that isn't to say that the Magic Speed 4 isn't going to take care of your needs if you want to run past 10 kilometers. I would just say from my experience, it is a little bit on the firmer side, as well as it did require a little bit of a break-in period for the cushioning itself. Now, in my first run review, I did tell you guys that my feet were hurting in this shoe, and I believe it's due to the carbon plate. It just felt a little bit stiff and it felt really hard on my foot. I wasn't running as fast for that first run review, so I would say that it's probably because I wasn't using the shoe to its intended use, which is to run fast and apply lots of pressure into the shoes. As I picked up the pace, I also did my PR mile video. Go check that out if you haven't already. And when I was running the fastest mile that I could, I felt that this shoe was able to keep up, and it gave me a little bit of bounce, a little bit of rigidity, as well as the needed stability that I needed for that mile run. So I think that the cushioning setup is fairly aggressive. It is pretty soft actually when you are running pretty slow, but that carbon plate really stiffens it up. And as you pick up the pace, it does stiffen up a little bit, and it gives you that aggressive, fast feeling that I think a lot of people will like in this shoe. So overall, I think cushioning was kind of middle of the pack, maybe average. I think that it did very well when I did want to run fast, but like I said, it is a little bit unforgiving and it is a little bit aggressive for my taste. So once I got past the 10-kilometer mark, I would prefer other super trainers. So I would say that in long runs, I kind of struggled in this shoe, but that also could be due to my weight as well as, you know, my fitness and all that stuff. So cushioning, in my opinion, was okay. I thought it did really well for those faster runs and a little bit shorter of runs. Now, moving on to the upper, last but not least, we have a pretty thin mesh upper paired with a thin gusseted tongue from ASICS. This upper is pretty minimal, and that's kind of how I like my uppers. It keeps it light, it keeps it a little bit more breathable, and it just doesn't feel like you have too much on your foot. Now, where I did have a couple problems was the fit. So as I said in my first run review, the shoe felt a little bit long. It felt like the width was okay for my wider than average foot, but I just felt that I had a little bit too much volume in the forefoot, as well as it just felt a little bit long. However, with the heel lockdown, also it took a couple of miles for me to break in the shoe, as well as using the runner's loop to really lock in that heel. But once I locked in the heel, my foot kind of sat more back in the shoe, and I did feel a little bit more space in the forefoot. Now, I did tie my shoelaces tighter and tighter after every run, and as the upper kind of broke in, it got a little bit better, but I would say that the fit errors a little bit more on the big side. So if you have a narrow or low volume foot, I would maybe recommend going half a size down. If you have a wide foot like me, then you might want to go true to size. And if you have a regular foot, I would say true to size just to be safe, because in my opinion, it's better to have a little bit of extra room in the forefoot than not enough. I think that the fit honestly was probably one of the Achilles heel parts of the shoe. It just wasn't my favorite part. I do like my shoes to fit a little bit more snug. I actually did try an 11.5 as well as an 11.5 wide in the shoe, but just for the long runs that I thought I was going to be running in this shoe, I wanted to have a little bit more space in the forefoot, and I think that in turn, I went true to size, and that in turn kind of gave me a little bit too much room in the forefoot. But again, the heel lockdown was fine, so it's just really nitpicking on the forefoot fit. As for how the upper felt in general, it felt really good. Like I said, I like minimal uppers. I think that they keep it lightweight. It keeps it feeling more like a skin, where it really molds to your foot, especially when there's thin and soft material like this. And I think that the heel counter or heel cushioning setup was totally passable, so I did not have any problems with that. I would just say that the fit is something that I think I would prefer if it fit just a touch more snug, and that could be on me for not actually going down half a size, but I think you definitely want to try this shoe in store if you can, if you are considering purchasing the ASICS Magic Speed 4. Now, last but not least, let's talk about ventilation. I thought that the ventilation on this shoe was average. It does, like I said, have a thinner upper. It's not loaded with perforation holes all throughout the upper, so you're not going to get a lot of ventilation or a lot of breathability, so I would say it's around average, but I did notice it when I was running really fast, or it was just really cold or really windy. I did feel a little bit of wind in my toes. So if ventilation is a big deal to you, I think that these will do the job or get the job done, but it's nothing crazy. So overall, what did I think of the ASICS Magic Speed 4? Like I said, in the cushioning department, I think that this is a great speed shoe for myself. 4 runs under 10 kilometers or 6.2 miles, just because I felt that the cushioning setup was a little bit too firm or aggressive for my liking, but that does not mean that it won't be perfectly suited for your preferences and needs. As I am 200 pounds and I do prefer certain setups over this, I think that there is an appeal for this type of shoe, especially maybe for lighter runners. And this is me just hypothesizing just because I'm not a light runner. I think that people maybe that don't need as much softness or cushioning as I do would really love the shoe, because it does have that, you know, high stack height and premium foam that's gonna feel really good under your feet. But I think just for me, it was a little bit too firm, and I just didn't prefer it for runs over that 10-kilometer mark. So I think that this shoe was okay for me. I would say around average. It's not my favorite shoe. It's definitely not the worst shoe that I've ran in, but I would say for $170, I personally probably wouldn't recommend it. So if you do have similar preferences to mine, or you do have a similar body type or weight as me, you might want to skip this shoe unless you're using it for dedicated speed work as well as, you know, runs under 10 kilometers. I do think that this could be a race day option for myself if I was running a 5K or a 10K, but anything above that, I don't think I would pick this shoe. I think that the Nike Zoom Fly 6 has my heart, honestly, for the super trainer category. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up my thoughts on the ASICS Magic Speed 4. Again, I thought that it was a good shoe. I don't think it was a great shoe. For the price point of $170, I think you are getting good value for the money. The amount of tech and the quality of the materials are very good, as ASICS usually always does. So this is a good shoe. I wouldn't say it's great, but that's just in my experience. So if you are interested in picking these up, go for it. I think you should definitely try on the shoe just to make sure that the fit is on point. But that's gonna pretty much wrap up my thoughts on the ASICS Magic Speed 4. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will be comparing these to some of the other super trainers that I have, just to go a little bit more in depth if you guys were curious between these, the Brooks Hyperion Max 2, and the Nike Zoom Fly 6. So stay tuned for those videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.